I wanted nothing more than silence when I drove 6 hours to my beach house in Cape May, New Jersey, a place I had bought 40 years ago with money earned from double shifts and sleepless nights, a place where my late wife and I had raised our children and planned to grow old together. But the moment I unlocked the door, I knew peace had already been stolen from me, because loud laughter echoed through the living room, champagne glasses clinked, unfamiliar shoes were scattered across the hardwood floor, and the smell of expensive perfume mixed with cigarette smoke filled the air. And then I saw them. My daughter-in-law Vanessa lounging on my sofa like she owned the place, her parents, cousins, siblings, and friends occupying every corner, using my home like a vacation resort. And before I could even speak, she looked at me with disgust and laughed loudly and said, "Why did this old leech show up here? There's no room for you." And the room went silent for just a second before they all laughed, some awkwardly, some cruelly, and I felt my heart sink, but I simply smiled and said, "It's okay, dear." Because years of being underestimated had taught me that silence can be more dangerous than shouting. And as I turned and carried my small bag to the guest room, I didn't tell her that the beach house was not just a place of memories, but the center of a legal structure she knew nothing about. A structure built patiently while she was busy humiliating the man she believed was powerless. That night, I slept little, listening to their music, their mockery, their careless jokes about how I would probably die soon anyway. And in the morning, I cooked breakfast for everyone, serving eggs and coffee with a calm smile while Vanessa rolled her eyes and whispered insults under her breath. And before leaving the house, I casually mentioned that I would be gone for a few days, which pleased her greatly because she immediately announced they would throw a bigger party once I was gone. And as I drove away, I made a single phone call to my attorney, the same man who had handled my assets for over a decade, and told him, "It's time." And from that moment forward, the nightmare began, because what Vanessa never bothered to learn was that the beach house was held under a revocable living trust, one that automatically triggered a review if unauthorized occupants stayed longer than 14 days, and her entire family had already crossed that limit. So within 48 hours, legal notices were sent, not to her, but to my son Mark, because legally he was responsible for his spouse's actions, and Mark, who had slowly drifted away from me under Vanessa's manipulation, was blindsided at work when his supervisor called him in and informed him that there was a legal hold on his company's stock options due to a pending civil matter involving property misuse and potential fraud. Because what Vanessa also didn't know was that the utilities, insurance, and maintenance for that house were tied to a corporate LLC under my name, and her father had unknowingly used the address to register a short-term rental listing, advertising luxury beachfront property online, and collecting money from strangers, which turned the situation from family disrespect into a federal issue. And while they were laughing on the beach and posting pictures on social media, investigators were quietly collecting evidence, screenshots, bank transfers, and recorded listings, and the first crack appeared when police showed up at the door asking questions about unauthorized rentals, and Vanessa panicked, screaming that it was all a misunderstanding. But panic turned to terror when Mark received court documents stating that his personal assets could be frozen if cooperation was not immediate. And suddenly the woman who called me an old leech was calling my phone nonstop, leaving messages that shifted from fake sweetness to hysterical crying. But I didn't answer, because I wanted her to understand what it feels like to be ignored in a place you thought you owned. And within a week the party stopped, the laughter vanished, and her family began quietly leaving one by one, some angry, some frightened, because subpoenas don't care about family bonds. And when Vanessa finally drove to my primary residence and stood at my door, mascara streaked down her face, begging me to fix everything, I invited her inside calmly and offered her tea, and she broke down confessing that she never respected me, that she believed I was weak and outdated, that she thought Mark deserved better than an old man clinging to property. And I listened without interrupting, then calmly slid a folder across the table containing documents she had never imagined existed, including a clause that allowed me to restructure inheritance distribution based on conduct, a clause that now legally redirected assets away from her and into a charitable foundation in my wife's name. And when she realized that her future, the lifestyle, the vacations, the security she bragged about, had evaporated, She collapsed to the floor sobbing, but I did not raise my voice or insult her. I simply said, "You laughed when you thought I had no power," and weeks later, when the case concluded with fines, mandatory repayments, and a permanent ban from managing any rental properties, Mark moved out, their marriage fractured. Under the weight of her arrogance, and the beach house returned to silence, and on a quiet morning months later I sat on the porch watching the waves, holding a letter from Mark apologizing for not standing up for me, and I realized that revenge does not require cruelty or violence, only patience, truth, and the courage to let people reveal who they really are. Because the woman who once called me an old leech learned too late that roots run deep, and when you disrespect the foundation, the entire structure collapses around you.